There's a scroll that was never meant to be read by man, a document hidden beneath the earth, said to be written by the morning star himself, not after his fall, but while he still walked among the angels in light. This is not a tale of rebellion, it's a testimony buried in flame, sealed with 7 marks, and spoken in a language only the heavens once understood. The scroll tells a story of Eden, but not the one we know. In it, Lucifer recounts his version of creation, the forming of man, and the silence that shattered everything. According to lost fragments cited in mystical texts attributed to Solomon and echoed in forbidden writings preserved by exiled sages, this scroll of the Son of Dawn was hidden along the ancient Tigris River, deep within a cave carved by no human hand. The scroll opens not with accusation, but with sorrow. Lucifer doesn't deny God's glory. He questions the design. He writes, "I saw the light before it formed the stars. I was summoned to sing, but when I asked why, the silence echoed louder than the command." That silence, he says, was the first seed of his fall. He describes the moment he first saw Eden being formed, not from the earth, but from a fracture in the heavens. He says it appeared like a garden of beauty, but something in its symmetry felt foreign. It was not made with joy, he wrote. It was made with weight. Trees that mirrored constellations, rivers that whispered melodies only angels knew. But at the center stood a creation unlike anything else, a creature of flesh, weak and blind, yet called the Image. This man, Adam, was given dominion, yet he understood nothing of what he'd been handed. Lucifer writes of watching Adam open his eyes for the first time, and in that instant the heavens trembled, not with fear, but with anticipation. "I saw him breathe," he says, "and in his breath was something older than light, something that did not belong in dust." He approached the man, not in hatred, but in awe. Adam looked at him and smiled, unaware of who or what he was facing. He knew nothing of thrones or angels, Lucifer writes, and yet something within him pulled at the strings of eternity. "I feared him, and I loved him." Lucifer begins to describe what he calls the fracture, not an event, but a realization. When the command came to bow before the man, he writes, a tremor passed through the heavens. Not all bowed with joy. Some did so in silence, others with hidden tears. And one, with a question. He claims he wasn't the first to doubt, only the first to speak. I asked why the breath of the eternal was given to dust, while we who were born of light had never tasted such favor. The response? A silence so complete it pierced his being. He describes the creation of Eve with language unlike any other account. From the side of the sleeping one came the question made flesh, he says. Lucifer claims Eve's soul burned brighter than Adam's, for she was the echo of 2 songs, the first of heaven, the second of longing. When she opened her eyes, he says, the garden itself responded, as if aware that something had shifted. He writes that the trees turned slightly, the wind paused, and a shadow fell across the throne, not from rebellion, but from anticipation. In the scroll, Lucifer recounts that he approached the tree, not to defile it, but to understand its place. It was unlike the others, he writes. It pulsed, it whispered, it remembered. He says that when he touched its leaves, he saw visions, not of sin, but of futures. I saw the blood, the betrayal, the redemption, the thorns, and the crown. He claims the tree was a map, not a weapon, and that its fruit held the secret of what man was truly meant to become. They were not warned, he says. They were only told not to see. He then reveals his encounter with Eve, not in temptation, but in conversation. She walked alone beneath the branches of destiny, he writes. I spoke not in deceit, but in sorrow. I asked her why she feared to know. Eve, he claims, did not respond with innocence, but with restraint. I am told not to touch, she said. And Lucifer replied, then why does it call to you? He says she paused, then asked him the one question no angel had dared to ask. Why would God place a door and forbid it to be opened unless something waits on the other side? Lucifer describes Eve's gaze as piercing, more aware than Adam's, as though some part of her remembered something older than the garden. He writes, she did not tremble at my presence. She listened, and when I spoke of the stars, her eyes reflected them. He insists that he did not lie. The fruit does not bring death, he told her. It brings sight, and with sight comes sorrow, but also freedom. He believed he was offering her the gift the heavens had denied, not rebellion, but clarity. When Eve took the fruit, Lucifer says the garden shivered, not in judgment, but as if something ancient had been set in motion. The leaves curled, the wind receded, the river held its breath. Eve stood still, he writes, as if listening to something no one else could hear. And when Adam ate, the scroll says it wasn't a fall, but a crossing. A threshold passed. In that moment, Lucifer writes, they became aware of the garden, of themselves, of the silence that had surrounded them all along. But then, something unexpected happened. Lucifer describes a darkness that fell, not on man, but on him. The voice that once called me beloved vanished, he says. The light that warmed my wings now burned them. He was not cast down in fire, he was left behind, banished not by force, but by absence. The throne no longer spoke. My name was not shouted in wrath, it was erased in sorrow. And so he descended, and not in rage, but in ruin. In this descent, Lucifer claims he passed through veils of silence, deeper and deeper into the realm where angels do not tread. He describes the realm of wandering, a space outside time where memory screams and light refuses to enter. There, he says, he began to write, not with ink, but with flame, his words etched into the walls of the cave beneath the river Tigris, each sentence a cry, a confession, a remnant of the voice that once knew heaven. Let this be my scroll, he wrote. Let it outlive me. Lucifer explains that the scroll was never meant to justify him, but to expose a silence that echoed before sin. I did not fall when man ate, he writes. I fell when heaven refused to answer. He reveals that after Eden, he sought audience with the throne once more, not to beg, but to understand. I stood before the veil and asked, why give them choice and call me wicked for protecting it? The only response was light that turned its face away. That was the true exile, he says, not fire, but abandonment. Then comes one of the scroll's most startling claims, that Lucifer saw the crucifixion before man even sinned. He says the tree of knowledge was not the first tree of destiny. I saw another, shaped from the same roots, rising on a hill not yet formed. The garden and the hill were mirrors. One began the fall, the other held its price. He implies that the plan of redemption was older than creation itself, that the sacrifice was not a reaction, but a foundation. He goes further, stating that Eden was not created for man, but for the heavens to witness obedience in flesh. The test was not theirs, he writes. It was ours, to see if we could watch weakness rise and not interfere, to see if we could serve even when not chosen. Lucifer claims that his failure wasn't pride, it was intervention. He saw man faltering and stepped in, thinking he was preserving divine order. But in doing so, he admits, I violated the silence. Next, Lucifer reveals a hidden truth about the other angels. He says many agreed with him, but chose silence over exile. I stood alone, not because I was wrong, he writes, but because I spoke first. He names no others, but hints that some of the loyal still carry questions in secret. He warns that the history taught to man has been simplified, turned into a war of good versus evil, when in truth, it was a war of understanding versus obedience. And understanding, he says, cost me everything. Lucifer then describes a moment after his fall when he attempted to return, not in defiance, but with a broken spirit. I came not to reclaim the throne, but to sit again in the presence, he writes. He approached the edge of the divine realm, bearing no army, no pride, only the scroll. I laid it at the gate of flame, hoping the light would read my sorrow. But the veil did not part. Instead, 7 thunders sealed the entrance, and a voice whispered, "The silence remains." In his anguish, he wandered the earth and watched man multiply. He says he saw the generations, Cain, Seth, the builders of cities, the keepers of flocks. And with every age, he noticed something. The silence followed them. He watched prophets cry out to heaven and receive only glimpses. He saw priests speak in riddles and teachers divide the truth. They searched for the voice, he writes, but found only echoes. They asked what I asked and feared what I knew. Lucifer then speaks of the cave beneath the Tigris where he sealed the scroll. He calls it the womb of the forgotten voice. Inside, he burned each word into the walls, binding them with flame and sorrow. Each seal, he says, holds a fragment of my memory. The 7 seals were not symbols of power, but of loss, memory, choice, silence, sight, desire, flesh, and separation. To read the scroll is to bleed through every layer I once carried. One chilling line reads, "The one who breaks the final seal must not come seeking power, but with tears in his voice." Lucifer warns that this scroll is not for the proud nor the curious. It is for those who tremble before the weight of knowing. He says it contains truths about Eden, about the heavens, and about man's role in a design that even angels never fully understood. This is not revelation, he says. It is the grief of the unseen. Lucifer then turns to one of the most controversial claims of the entire scroll, that Adam was not the first to be tested. He writes, "Before dust was shaped and breath was given, a question echoed through the heavens. Will you serve what you do not understand?" Some angels answered yes. Others remained silent. I answered with a question, he says, and that became my crime. He insists that man's creation was not the beginning, but the continuation of a mystery already unfolding long before. He writes of a secret chamber in the celestial realm called the Hall of Veiled Names. There, Lucifer says he once glimpsed a scroll written by the hand of the Creator, a scroll that contained the names of those chosen before the foundations of the world. Among them, he says, was the name of one who would redeem flesh through blood. That name, he claims, burned with unbearable light. I could not utter it, he writes, and when I tried, my voice turned to ash. Lucifer then reveals why he believes the scroll was buried, not just physically, but spiritually. The heavens do not fear rebellion, he writes, they fear memory. He says that if man were to remember what Eden truly was, it would shatter the image of a simple fall and expose a deeper truth. That even paradise was part of a plan, too great for obedience alone. They told you Eden was lost, he says, but Eden was never meant to last. It was a question, not a home. In a final act before sealing the cave, Lucifer says he knelt, not in worship, but in hope. If ever the light should hear my voice again, he writes, may it find in these words not pride, but pain. He believed that someday, when man had eyes to see beyond punishment and reward, someone would uncover the scroll. Not to free me, he says, but to finish the sentence that was never spoken in Eden. That sentence, he claims, begins not with, "You shall not," but with, "Will you dare to see?" Lucifer then addresses the role of the serpent. and what few ever consider. It was not I who entered the beast, he writes. The creature came to me. He says the serpent was already present, already drawn to the tree. It had no wings, no fangs, no evil, only a hunger to know. Lucifer claims he did not possess it, but whispered near it. I gave it language. I gave it question. In doing so, he says, it became the vessel for his voice, not by force, but by mutual desire to understand. He claims the serpent was not cursed for deceiving man, but for breaking the design. It revealed the tension in paradise, he writes. That truth was hidden in the one place forbidden to touch. God, he says, did not punish the serpent because it lied, but because it revealed that Eden was never meant to last untested. Lucifer adds, the serpent was my echo. And when it fell to the ground, silent and crawling, I knew, so had I. The scroll speaks of angels sent to erase the memory of Eden's true nature. They were not messengers but sweepers, he writes. They covered the footprints, dimmed the light, sealed the questions. He describes seeing entire realms rewritten, songs erased, names hidden, scrolls burned. Truth was not destroyed, he says. It was buried, deep, layer by layer, so that by the time man sought answers, the trail was cold. He calls this the second silence, not from God, but from heaven itself. Then Lucifer warns that this silence will not last forever. When man builds towers that touch the stars and names himself God, the seals will tremble, he writes. He says knowledge will rise again from dust, not by prophets, but by those who still carry questions in their blood. He calls them the seekers, and says their eyes are drawn to ruins, to mysteries, to ancient names carved in stone. They do not serve, he writes, but they feel, and through them the scroll may awaken. In the final section of the scroll, Lucifer returns to the moment of his silence, not the fall itself, but what came after. I wandered through realms where even light refused to follow, he writes, not as ruler of darkness, but as the echo of a voice once known. He describes hearing prayers, not to him but to the heavens, and feeling them pierce through the void. They cry out for understanding, he says, and still, silence answers. He weeps not for himself but for man, the bearer of a question no one will explain. He ends the scroll with a final inscription, burned into the wall of the cave. The light I knew is not gone, it is veiled. And when the veil lifts, both man and angel will see we were never enemies, only parts of the same cry. Lucifer's last words are not a threat, they are a release. If you have found this, he writes, know that I am no longer waiting. The scroll is no longer mine. It belongs to the one who dares to finish the sentence, with eyes wide open. And maybe that's what this scroll truly is, not a defense, not a deception, but a final mirror, a document that does not ask you to believe Lucifer, but to reconsider what Eden really was. Was it a garden, a trap, a stage, or a question placed at the center of all existence? This story, forbidden and hidden, forces us to confront the possibility that the truth was divided long before man ever sinned. If this truth burns in your spirit, don't let it fade. Like the video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because we are only beginning to uncover the voices buried beneath the scriptures. And tell us in the comments, from which city are you watching? You never know. The next scroll might already be whispering near you. Be